Welcome back to a Timey Wimey pod where we watch every episode of Doctor Who from 2005 onwards. My name's Rebecca,
I'm Haley.
and today we are discussing Series 3, Episode 10, Blink.
Yes, and I don't know about you, but I am really excited to talk about this because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we've mentioned this episode here and there in past episodes, if it made the cut in editing.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember because we talk about the show so much. I can't remember what we've said on the pod and off the pod. But one thing
Mm-hmm.
we have to talk about is this is where we get the name of our podcast from, is this episode.
It is. Oh my gosh, we had I don't think we've talked about this before on the pod, but we had
No.
like a short list of different names, and a timey-wimey pod it drew both of us in, and it's from this episode, and it's from just such an iconic moment in Doctor Who history.
And none of the other names we had hit as hard as Timey Wimey Pod.
No, they really didn't.
I can't remember any right now. Can you think of any of the names we almost used?
So these are names our podcast almost was. Tea in the TARDIS.
Oh, I do not like that.
I don't either. Into the Vortex.
That one's good.
That one is good, and I think this was, if I'm remembering right, that was like our other option we almost chose.
Yeah, I think so.
And then Back in Time, a Doctor Who rewatch podcast. That is so long.
Yeah,
But it's
but
cute.
it works. But yeah, I'm glad we didn't do that.
Yeah, and then the last one is Partners in Crime.
Oh, that one's cute. That would have been good. I like what we ended up on, but there's a little bit of trivia for you all.
And I just realized that the week Blink goes up, this episode goes up, guys, is the week of our 1 year podcast anniversary.
Happy anniversary, everyone.
Happy anniversary. So crazy that it's already been a year. January 30th, 2024 is when we posted our first episode.
Wow. I've really, lately, I've been really wanting to go listen back to our old episodes, but I'm also
Mm-hmm.
scared too.
Me too. I was listening to our Boomtown episode the other night randomly.
Classic. Well, are you ready for some fantastic facts about this episode?
Yes, I am.
All right, so this episode was written by none other than Stephen Moffat. It was directed by Hetty MacDonald, who later did The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, and it aired June 9th, 2007. This episode was loosely adapted from Moffat's 2006 short story called What I Did on My Christmas Holidays by Sally Sparrow. And that short story, from what I've read, it's fairly similar, but it's presented in you're reading it as like a homework essay written by a 12-year-old Sally who encounters evidence of the doctor's presence from the past in her aunt's house. So basically kind of the same story, but she's a child and there's no weeping angels.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, Moffat had planned to use the Weeping Angels in his two-parter for Series 4, Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. But if you remember when we talked about Daleks Take Manhattan, he was supposed to write those episodes and then had to pull out and instead wrote this instead. And so when he made that decision, he decided to use the Weeping Angels here instead of Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead.
I did not know that, but I am so glad he made that choice because I'm not going to spoil it or really talk about it, but Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, that like big bad, so good. And I don't know how I would feel if the Weeping Angels were in its place.
Yeah, but I'm also like hearing that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like you could see how the angels were almost in that episode instead. You know what I mean?
You could for sure.
Yeah, but no, I'm glad everything happened exactly as it should have. Like we almost didn't get Blink. We almost had a completely different just everything happened exactly as it should have. Michael Obiora, who plays Billy, recorded his scenes before the scene of his older self, played by Lewis Mahoney, was filmed, and Mahoney had a much stronger accent. So Michael had to re record all his scenes, and they're basically dubbed over because he didn't use a strong enough accent the first time. And apparently, you can still hear his like regular Londoner accent when he goes back in time to 1969, but I forgot to kind of pay attention and listen for myself. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice that at all. I'm actually surprised
Yeah.
that was dubbed over.
Me too. You can't really tell. Oh, right. Before we really get into it, I have to get on my soapbox and say my piece. People
Mhm.
hail this episode as the best Doctor Who episode of all time, the episode that you should show someone if you're trying to get them into the show. And I have a lot of problems with that idea, not because this is a bad episode or that I really have any major qualms with it, because I don't. However, I think to hail it as the best of the show and to tell someone who's never seen the show to start with this makes absolutely no sense, because this isn't a Doctor Who episode. Like, it is, but it isn't. All the things that make the show what it is are gone. You don't have the Doctor, you don't have the companion. This is a very separate one-off story from what the show normally is. So I feel like if you were showing someone this episode for the first time and they hadn't seen anything else, they would be getting the wrong impression, because this is not what the show is. And to say it's the best episode of the show is also weird, because this isn't a typical Doctor Who episode. And I don't know. I just think it's so weird to say it's the best one. And it's a great episode. It's great television. But I don't know. What do you think?
I completely agree that this is not one of the episodes to show someone who has never seen Doctor Who, because they will be set up to have the wrong expectations for the show because it is so different than the rest of the episodes. However, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking about this episode in the context of people who were watching it live. And I feel like those people were the initial group of people to say this is the best Doctor Who episode. And when you're looking at
Mm.
it through that lens, Blink is the latest Doctor Who episode to air, and it is something so completely different. The show is still finding its footing as a revival. It's just the third series. I really understand why so many people hail this as like their favorite Doctor Who episode or the best Doctor Who episode of all time. However, speaking now in modern day in 2025, I think that needs to be shifted and adjusted because, like you said, and I agreed with you, this isn't like the episode to show to a newcomer, and this isn't, in my opinion, the best episode of the entire show, but it is a good episode nonetheless.
Oh, yeah, it's a great episode. And I understand if this is your favorite or if you do think it's the best. I get that. It just feels like, but this isn't really a Doctor Who episode. So it's like, do you even
Yeah.
like the show if this is your favorite? But that's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't know if I could pick the best episode of all time. I really don't think I could.
I don't think I could either, but I know it wouldn't be Blink.
No. Blink is a great episode. I mean, we're gonna get
Mhm.
into it, but Moffat really Moffated with this one.
He really did. This is really, honestly, in my opinion, the true beginning of the Moffat-isms we see throughout the rest of his tenure on the
Mm,
show.
yeah, definitely.
So, you didn't mention this in your Fantastic Facts, and I don't know if you know this, but originally Sally Sparrow was supposed to be a future companion, or there was at least a thought to bring her on, but the actress Carey Mulligan unfortunately declined that offer, and I understand. Actually, no, I don't, because I kind of wish she was a companion.
Me too, but I mean, I'm so happy with what we ended up getting, but yeah, I would
Yeah,
have loved to see Sally again and have her adventures with the 10th or 11th Doctor, but what could have been?
What could have been? But speaking of Sally Sparrow, I love her character so much in this episode.
Oh, me too. She's great. We meet her when she's exploring this spooky house late at night
Mm-hmm.
alone, and she finds this message behind the wallpaper. And she's better than me because if I was in an old house and I saw a message on the wall that said, "Duck now," I'd be standing there like, "Huh?" And I'd get hit with by the rock. So she's better than me for like thinking quick enough to duck. However, that moment also kind of bugs me a little bit because she reads it, stops, gasps, and then ducks, and then the rock comes in. So it's like she's reading it and ducks, and then the rock comes in. So she ducks into, I don't know. It just always bugs me how that's played. Like, I think more realistically, if you read like duck now, you'd be like, you'd kind of like slowly duck, like, okay. And then, you know what I mean? You want to be like, oh, I better duck.
I don't know. I would be standing there being like, huh? And then I
Yeah.
would read duck and then I would hit the ground so fast, honestly. But that's just me.
Yeah. I don't know. Let us know what you guys would do if you saw a message of someone telling you to duck.
But who threw the rock? Was it the weeping angel or was it the doctor traveling there to mess with her?
That would be crazy. I think it was the weeping angel.
I don't know. We don't
It
see
is
the
kind of
weeping
weird.
angel
Why
throw a
would
rock.
why would they throw a rock? Like, what is the point of that?
Exactly my point.
Wait, I've never really thought about this before. And how would he know to tell her that she needed to duck? Unless she like put it in that
Mm-hmm.
folder she gives him. Okay, now I have more questions, but let's move on before we end up in a tailspin. I love throughout the episode before we get like the big scene of Sally and the doctor kind of talking to each other through like the transcript and the video, how you just casually see the doctor on all these TV screens just talking nonsense, and then none of it makes sense until that big scene later on. But I just love how he's just casually on the screens throughout this episode.
It's always so funny to me, and it's really funny to me how like Larry mentions to Sally that he's an Easter egg. I don't know. Just like that description is so funny to me for some reason.
It is really funny. I have a slight bone to pick with Larry, aka Lorne,
Mm.
which is my grandfather's name. Like, funny enough, but he is like staying at his sister's house, and it seemed like he was just like watching TV in the living room doing the Easter egg thing. Why is he like not? And I understand people sleep without clothes because for whatever reason that's totally normal. But he's staying at his sister's house and then is just walking around, no clothes, nothing.
Red flag. Do that on your own time when you live alone,
Yeah,
is all I'll
exactly.
say.
Yeah. You can't do that when you have roommates or if you're staying with someone. But I love when Kathy comes down and she's yelling at him. Like, that is just perfect sister brother relationship right there.
It really is. And another, it's later on, but another classic sister brother moment is after Kathy already disappeared. And Sally
Hmm.
just says, she says to Larry, she told me to tell you she loves you. And Larry's like, is she ill? Which is so funny because such a perfect depiction of a brother sister relationship.
Oh yeah, completely. We don't get a whole lot of Kathy, but I love Kathy, and
Mm-hmm.
also the names like Sally Sparrow, Kathy Nightingale, Sparrow Nightingale. It sounds so perfect. Like, I'm just obsessed with those names together.
Me too. Sparrow and Nightingale has such a ring to it, and I love it.
Hmm. Yeah, and I love when they go explore the creepy old house. There's a lot of lines in this episode that are stuck with me forever. But one I really like is when Sally says, "I love old things, they make me sad." And then she explains that sad is happy for deep people. And I think about that all the times because I love things that make me sad, like sad edits and sad
Mm-hmm.
stories. So I relate.
Oh no, I relate as well. to sad is happy.
Also, I really like the leather jacket that Kathy is wearing. I don't know why.
It is a sleigh. Okay, I have a question for you.
I'm ready.
POV, me and you are in this house with the creepy weeping angels, and
Mhm.
I'm upstairs, and you answer the front door to this random man who claims he's my grandson. Would you believe him?
No, but also my big problem is if we were in a creepy abandoned house by ourselves and someone knocked on the door, we would be going together to see who's at the door. That's my big issue.
So true. I would not elect to stay upstairs.
No.
Absolutely not.
Like, I'm coming with you.
Yeah. I don't understand why Kathy was paranoid about whoever was at the door. I know it's like the writing and for the plot, but I
Yeah.
really don't understand why she didn't go to the front
No.
door.
But the grandson showing up while she's still in the house is crazy.
Oh, it's so crazy because she's in the house for a good minute while he's
Yeah.
talking and delivering the letter to Sally, and then all of a sudden you just hear like this like
Bang.
boom and she's gone.
No, it's so crazy.
What would your reaction be if you were suddenly zapped into 1920? Because for me, I would crawl into a ball and cry.
Yeah, I'd be pissed. I'd be so upset. I'd be so mad. I'd be no, I'd be really upset. But I do love the guy that she meets and how he was like the first person she met
Mm-hmm.
and he just kept following her and they got married and had kids. It's very Outlander-esque.
You're not wrong. It is Outlander.
Something I need to talk about. There are so many Sallys in this episode. First, the
Mm.
main Sally, Sally Sparrow. Then Kathy has a daughter, and her name is Sally. And then Billy Shipton, he marries a Sally. And I used to think that even though it was never explicitly said, that the Sally that Billy married was Kathy's daughter, Sally. But then when I was watching it today, I was like, okay, Kathy ends up in 1920. Let's say she has her daughter within 5 years of her getting there. You know, things move quickly in 1920. Billy doesn't go to the past till 1969, so it can't be the same Sally. The math just isn't really mathing, but maybe it could be the same. What are your thoughts? Why? But if it's not the same Sally, why are there so many Sallys?
I literally just pulled out my calculator trying to figure this out. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll have an answer because it's one of two things. Either there's lots of Sallys because Moffat just thought that was funny,
Mm.
or he did marry Kathy's daughter, Sally.
Now I know what I'm gonna ask Stephen Moffat when I meet him, if I ever meet him. Be like, the Sally that Billy marries, is that Kathy? And he's like, who? What?
He's like, that was like 17 years ago.
He's like, most people want to know why Amy and Rory were stuck. But no, I don't know, because I always just kind of like thought that before, and then today I was like,
Yeah.
wait, the timeline doesn't really make sense, but then it's just so crazy that there's so many Sallys. Also, I love the fact that Kathy lied about her age. I think that's really funny.
So funny. So iconic for her to do that.
Yeah. So funny that like the lie went so deep it ended up on her headstone.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite moments is when Sally goes to the little DVD store and then there's the guy yelling at the TV and he's like, "Go to the police, you stupid woman. Like, why do they never go to the police?" And that guy is me because there's so many times in like old movies and shows where it's like, you really should have just gone to the police. Like when you heard about this. So I love that she does try to go to the police.
She does try to go to the police, and I agree with you. I swear, like 98% of the time, I'm like, your issues would be solved. This whole movie wouldn't have occurred if you just went to the police in the first place.
Yeah.
But, like, the difference in this episode here is that she actually shouldn't have gone to the police because Billy Shipton gets sent back in time because she goes to the police.
Are Billy and Sally the most tragic couple in this show? Because their chemistry is insane.
It is off the charts. I am devastated every time I watch this episode when
Mm-hmm.
I have the realization all over again that they were never going to be together. They were just so good together. Are they the most tragic story in the show? No.
That's fair, but they're up there. They're the definition of
Mhm.
two ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
Then the way when she's giving him her name and she accidentally says Sally Shipton, so funny. So funny.
And it's so cute too, and I love it. And that's the last time she sees Billy Shipton before he's old and dying.
So sad.
You mentioned that there's a lot of lines in this episode that just have stuck with you, and I agree because the one of the lines that has really stuck with me, and I don't know what exactly it is about it, but it's when Sally's in the hospital room with Billy and he says, "It was raining when we met." And she just says,
It's the
"It's the
same
same
rain.
rain."
I wrote
And
that
it
down as one of
just,
the lines.
I love it. And it
Hmm.
just cuts so deep.
I know. I think about that too all the time. Like that's just such a good line. And it's so sad because it's like for her it's only been a couple minutes and for him it's been a lifetime, and he finally gets to see
Mhm.
her again right at the end, and it's like they could have had such a cute little life together and it was stolen before anything could even happen. I also love the two lines he says when he first meets her and he's first asking, for her number and everything. He says, because life is short and you are hot, and then the
Mhm.
older Billy, while he's lying there, he says, "Life is long and you are hot." And it's such a ridiculous line, but it cuts deep. It's kind of sad.
It is sad. And it's even sadder when he passes away, but I love that Sally stays by his side while
Mhm.
he passes. And the shot is only for a moment. It's pretty short, but after that you just see Sally looking outside into the sunlight and you see an empty hospital room because he had said, the doctor told me that like I basically have us like until the brain stops.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it's so sad, but the way it's written and the way they shot it and directed it is really well done.
Yeah. It really is. And we find out that older Billy went into video producing or something like that. And basically, he's the
Mhm.
one responsible for getting the Easter eggs of the Doctor onto this list of 17 DVDs. And you later find out it's all the DVDs that she happens to own. And to that, I say, drop the DVD list.
What are the movies? We need to know. We need
I'm
to
dying
like
to know.
watch that list.
I know. Ten and Martha, when they meet Billy in 1969, Martha says that before they lost the TARDIS, they went to the moon landing 4 times. How many times do you got to watch the moon landing?
Were they watching it like on Earth or were they there?
They couldn't be there 4 times.
No, I know. I don't know why they would do it so many times. Martha and him have already been on the moon together, and Smith and
Yeah.
Jones.
Yeah, and it just always makes me think of future episodes Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon because of all the moon landing stuff with that and the silence, and it's like the implications here.
Moffat just really loves the Blitz and the moon.
Yeah, I guess so. He really does love the moon if you think about it.
I love the scene where Sally and Larry are back in the creepy house and they have the portable DVD player. Shout out to you, portable DVD players.
Ugh,
I
I miss
loved you.
them.
I miss
You
them so
can't play
much.
DVDs anymore. There's like no way to play DVDs anymore. Obviously you can, but no there's not because you can't play DVDs on laptops. Most people don't have any kind of DVD player for their TV. No one has a portable DVD player and nothing upsets me more.
It's actually really upsetting, especially because, oh my gosh, this is a whole side tangent, but there's just like, for the past couple of years, there have just been like all of these different shows and movies that are like forever going off of streaming and
Mhm.
being tax write offs, and like they will never see the light of day ever again because there was no physical media. And there's just something to having the physical DVD of a show or a movie you love.
I just think if I have $1,000 laptop, I should be able to play a DVD from said laptop.
No, you should be able to. You shouldn't have to buy one to plug into your computer for
No.
an extra like 30, $40. It's
No.
ridiculous.
So whoever's behind technology, if you could bring back DVD slots, we'd really appreciate it.
Yes, we would.
I love when they're watching having the conversation with the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and the doctor says, the angels have the phone box, and I love how Larry's like, I love that line. I have it on a T-shirt.
Yeah, honestly, I do throw some shade at him with his actions at the beginning of the episode, but he does
Mhm.
have some really funny lines like that and funny quips. And he's just like all gung ho, no hesitation being with Sally in this environment with the creepy angels. And I really like that about him. And I love the whole discovery of the transcript and Tin and Sally going back and forth, kind of, and her being like, he can hear me? He can hear me?
Mhm.
And he's like, not really, but kind of. And it's just such a great example of a time loop that is such a Moffat thing.
Oh, it really is. Timey wimey is. It's very. This episode is very timey wimey. And I love how Larry is just like this Reddit guy, like into all
Yes.
these forums about these Easter eggs. Like it's so funny, and he's like, look to your left. Like I've been trying to figure out what that means. I think it's a political statement, and it's like, no, he just means you. But no, I love that whole scene. And we need to talk about Martha. Every single episode this season, we talk about how things keep like it's always so bad for Martha. She's always
Mm-hmm.
down bad. Last week things were really bad. Her stuck in what 1914 as a maid at this old boys school, and you think surely it can't get worse. Well, then she gets stuck again here in 1969, and she's forced to get a job at a shop so she can provide for herself and the doctor.
Okay. She really has gone through it in every single episode. And she's really going through it being stuck in 1969 with the doctor and having to get a job. But the whole exchange is so funny. I die laughing every time.
No, me too. I love when she's like, I had to get a job to support him. And he's like, Martha.
And she's like, "Oh, sorry. I guess I'll like get off camera." But it's funny, but no, yeah, she's really gone through it. Like to be stuck in 1913 with John Smith, no thank you. And then to have to get a job in a shop in 1969. Mm-mm.
No, poor Martha. I would have loved a scene to see them, like how they got to the old house and were zapped into the past by the angel. I would have loved to see that scene, or even
Mm.
just more of a glimpse into what they were doing this whole time, stuck in 1969.
Yeah, it would have been really great to see that and to see like the origin of all of this of Tin and Martha
Hmm.
landing and being zapped back in time. That would be fun. Kind of
Yeah,
wish that was a deleted scene at the very least.
me too. But I think not having that is also just kind of like the magic of Blink. Like we're just
Yeah.
immediately plopped into this character's life, someone we've never met before, never see again, and just see kind of her perspective of these interactions with the doctor. And the scene at the end I really love too. And I don't know, it's like a whole new perspective on the show and the character that's really interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know about you, but every time 10 starts to say, don't blink, don't even blink and you're dead, something about it just gives me that dopamine hit, that serotonin
Mm-hmm.
boost. I just love it so much. And as soon as he says that, just like everything ups the ante, and I love it. Then the Weeping Angels are after Sally and Larry. And every time I watch this episode, I try so hard not to blink after the doctor says don't blink, and I fail every time.
Mm-hmm. When Larry was like having to stare at the statue while Sally was trying to find a way out, I tried to not blink so I could like experience it in real time with him, and I couldn't do it. My
Mm-hmm.
eyes dried up so quickly.
No, me too.
Once they get into the TARDIS and it seems like the TARDIS is leaving them, I freak out every time with them.
Me
And
too.
especially when Sally's like, "No, you can't leave us." Like she's freaking out and then they're just surrounded by the statues.
Yeah, it is so freaky how they filmed this because for just a split second, like, yes, we know the TARDIS is leaving them, but also at the same time, visually, it almost looks like they're in the TARDIS at one point, and it's just
Mhm.
so creepy. And when they're first trying to head to the TARDIS down in the cellar, side note, just for the future, for people in the Doctor Who world, in the future, don't go down to basements when there's weeping angels
Mm.
around.
Oh,
Just don't go
so true.
downstairs. Um, just giving you that little tip. But anyways, they're like Sally and Larry are trying to get to the TARDIS. The weeping angels are like flashing the lights on and off, which is so creepy. And then
Oh,
once they're in the TARDIS, before the TARDIS starts going away, the angels like toss the TARDIS back and forth. Like it is so
yeah.
creepy.
It's so creepy. No, that I like kind of forgot about that until I was watching this episode again today and I was like
Mm-hmm.
that is terrifying. Why does the TARDIS leave them behind?
Okay, I was thinking about this earlier, and I think that was always the plan the doctor had.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because Larry had that DVD that he put into the TARDIS console, and as soon as he did that, the TARDIS started turning on and then started flying away. And once the TARDIS went away, all of the angels were looking at each other. And we previously learned earlier in this episode that the angels, if they made eye contact with one another, like then they would stop. Then they wouldn't be able to
Mhm.
move. So I think that was the plan all along, and it was just the classic Doctor move, scaring bystanders.
Well, he certainly scared them. That's for sure. But I do love when she says like, "Oh, she tricked him." It just is like, "Oh wow, that was so smart." Like he really even
Mm-hmm.
from all those years in the past, he was able to trick them and get them to all look at each other.
Yeah, he was. And we haven't really talked yet about the weeping angels themselves, but how do you feel about them?
I love the Weeping Angels. They're some of the best creatures, villains on the
Mm-hmm.
show. Definitely one of the best ones made for New Who. I'm excited every time they pop up. And honestly, they could be used more. Like they've been used very sparingly compared to
Mm-hmm.
Daleks, Cybermen, whatever. So I'm always down to see more of them. I think they are I'm trying to decide if they're the scariest here or in another episode. And I think they
Mm.
might be the scariest here just because it's the first time we see them and there's still so much unknown and that's what's really scary. But they continue being scary later on, especially when we get to New York. Oof, there's some scary stuff there. But yeah, what about you? What do you think of the angels?
I love the Weeping Angels so much. They are one of my favorite Doctor Who villains of all time. There's just something about them, and I agree. Like, I feel like they could definitely be used more. And it is hard to like figure out if they're the scariest here or in one of the future episodes with them. I don't know how I feel currently, but I love them so much. And the way they're written in each episode they appear in, is always so good and so suspenseful and so creepy and scary. And like the thought of them, like the doctor says, them being psychopaths that basically, I forget exactly how he phrases it, but they zap you back into time instead of killing you on the spot. And it's almost like that is worse because then the people that zapped back into time live a lifetime and miss like all of the potential what could have been if they stayed in the present.
Yeah, they feed off of all the days that the person would have had, all like that
Mm-hmm.
energy, and they kill the person slowly, which is just insane and fascinating. And the idea, I love any idea of someone being stuck in the past or like, I don't know, that concept is just really interesting to me. And we've talked about it before. We're fans of Moffat here, but a lot of people have criticisms. Some of those are valid, but I think what he doesn't get enough credit for is how brilliant the creatures he makes are. Like the weeping angels, the silence, like there's so many others. He really just has a knack for creating these terrifying creatures that I don't think RTD does as well. And he has some great creatures during his tenure, and great characters, but nowhere near. It's not like what Moffat does, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I completely know what you mean. And I completely agree with you on that front.
So we get to see Sally and Larry a year into their future. We find out they
Mm-hmm.
opened a little shop, Sparrow Nightingale, a little like video and antique bookshop, which is cute.
It is cute. And not to get spoilery, but not the image of an angel in the pile of like pictures Sally's looking through.
Oh, that's a really good point. Be careful, y'all. But yeah, we find out the reason the doctor had the transcript and he knew what was going on is because he got it from Sally way before any of this ever
Mm-hmm.
happened.
And it is such a Moffat thing, the way it was written. Very timey-wimey. Tim gets the transcript way before anything in the rest of this episode even happens. And I love the timey-wimey aspect of that. And I want to know, what were him and Martha doing with the bow and arrows?
Yes, and there's some kind of like lizard
Yeah.
hatching mating season going on. I don't know. I As much as I love Martha, she does always bug me in the scene where she keeps just being like, "We gotta go, we gotta go. Come on, come on." Like I'm like, "Girl, pause." Like we're stopped for a reason. This is important. But whatever they were doing must have been really important.
Yeah. I will say I feel like the doctor at the end, like in this scene with Sally, is a little out of character because he just acts so nonchalant about her knowing him and him not knowing her. And maybe he's just like used to stuff like this happening to himself throughout his incarnations. But I don't know. I feel like in any other given episode, he would be a little bit more confused and be like, huh? Oh, really? What's happening?
Well,
Before
there's when
realizing.
Sally tells him like, "Okay, one day you're going to end up in 1969." He has this face that's like, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks." And
Okay,
he even
actually, you're
mentions
right.
how yeah, and he even mentions how he often meets people in the wrong order.
Ain't that the truth in this show? Especially in the
Mhm.
future.
Oh yeah, that's another Moffatism is the doctor meeting
Mm-hmm.
people in the wrong order.
What do you think about Sally grabbing Larry's hand at the end of this?
I don't know. I think it's kind of funny how like in 1 minute she's like, "We just run a shop, nothing else," and then a minute later she's like, "Now that the mystery is solved, I can move on and we can be together." It's like, okay, that makes sense, I guess, but I'm happy for them. I think I ship it. They seem cute, kind
Mm-hmm.
of, and I hope they lived a long, happy life with their little shop.
Yeah. One last question for you. What do you make of the end of this with all the shots of all the statues around the city and then the clip again of Tin saying, don't blink?
Oh, I think that's just Moffat trying to scare us and scare kids watching this and be like, any statue could be a weeping angel. Because Moffat loves to scare the children.
That is actually so true. Oh, this is such a small moment and really stupid, honestly, to mention because it's so silly. But I love the Timey Wimey detector that
Oh,
Tin
me
has.
too. It is so fun. And I love when it comes back way later into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do really like Martha's outfit that we see like 2 seconds of. It's always nice
Yeah.
to see her in something other than her traditional outfit because that happens so rarely this series. So headband's cute. Looked like she had like kind of a skirt moment going on. Loved it.
It is a look, and I wish we got more of it.
Or just like more looks in general, really.
So true.
Who is the star of the show?
Okay, so Sally's the true star of the show, but I can't not also say Billy Shipton.
I completely agree.
There's just something about that man and all the possible could have beens.
Sally really comes in clutch, saves the day, but you got to give Billy credit for having to go the long way around and do all the DVD extras and slip in those Easter eggs without anyone noticing somehow. So, yeah, justice for Billy. What is the heart of this story?
Don't go into creepy old houses.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, don't go into creepy old houses and yeah, just don't blink.
Blink and you're dead.
Do we have any reviews from the past?
Yes, we do. But before we get into the reviews, I have a fun little anecdote, including the weeping
Ooh.
angels from
Ooh.
my life. So many moons ago, my mom borrowed my computer for a presentation of some kind for something school related. So she was in a meeting with a lot of other parents, and she's using my computer and she's connecting it to the TV at that venue. And I didn't think anything of it, but when she came back, she was really mad. And I asked her why she was mad. And she proceeded to ask me why on earth was my screensaver creepy angels that were moving every 3 seconds.
Stop. I remember when this happened.
And I was so embarrassed. And at the time, I was forced to change my screensaver. But that got my
Wow.
mom to start watching the show. And now she loves the Weeping Angels.
That is so funny.
Kind of
really funny.
iconic.
My own anecdote about this episode, despite what I said at the beginning, about how this is a terrible first episode to show someone. I think I did when I was introducing my younger siblings to the show. I think this was the first episode I showed them because everyone was like, this is the perfect first episode to show someone. And then later, now that I'm older and wiser, I'm like, no, this is not the perfect first episode to show them. But it did kind of get them into the show. My younger sister kind of watches it. I don't know about anyone else, but
That's actually really funny.
mm-hmm.
Anyways, to the reviews. I just
Yeah,
had to share that because
that's amazing.
it really was. All right, this review is from IMDb by the user Cedra Kanamakan, and it was written on September 10th, 2007. And I'm just going to read a snippet of this. I really liked what they said in this one paragraph. They said, episodes like these are the reason why I love Doctor Who. The whimsical, the terrible, the funny, and the gruesome all mixed up in one. And this episode, even though, like Love and Monsters, was largely an alternative viewpoint, it had everything. From the quips to the tension, Blink mixes all the elements that make Doctor Who wonderful and emerges with the best episode of the new series so far. The fact that Tennant wasn't there much didn't matter, and the writing and the execution excelled. The acting was excellent, and I would be so pleased if Carrie Mulligan showed up again or even became a companion. Same.
Me too. That is something we didn't really talk about, is how this is a Dr. Light episode. It's only
Mm-hmm.
really the second Dr. Light episode that they had done at this point, the first being Love and Monsters. And it is just so crazy to compare those two. And Love and Monsters has its fans, but nowhere near as many as Blink. And it's just like, yes, this is how you do a Dr. Light episode.
I completely agree. This last review I have here is from the user ZeroB, also on IMDb, and it was written on August 29th, 2007. And they wrote saying, I have been watching season 3 so far out of obligation.
Oh.
Week after week, the episodes were fairly uninspired and too kiddie for the most part. I don't mean that there aren't adult situations, most via violence. But I say kiddie in the sense of abandoning the logic of internal consistency and the way people behave.
Okay.
The previous two-parter where the Doctor becomes human was quite good for the most part, but still had the wooden behavior apparent, especially in the villains. Now comes Blink. Holy mackerel. I wonder why this episode is so radically better than most of the others. Is it a fluke? Or is the team that made this simply unavailable for most of the other episodes? It's the only one I just had to watch from the beginning immediately after, not because I didn't get it, but because it was so good.
Listen, when Moffats, he really Moffats.
He really does Moffat when he Moffats. However, what do you mean previous villains were wooden? And why are you saying this show is too kiddie? Why are you watching the show then?
I know. Like, at the end of the day, we do all have to acknowledge that this is a family show.
Yeah. I mean, no, it is a family show, but the way it seemed to me that that reviewer just thought there was no value in an adult watching a family show.
And it's like the villains last week, like, those episodes aren't really about the villains. Like, they're just kind of, they're supposed to be kind of wooden villains. That's the point. Like, you don't watch Human Nature and Family of Blood for the villains. You watch it for the Doctor and John Smith and that whole dynamic.
Yeah, no, completely. And I know I said that was the last review, and I'm not going to read like another review or anything, but I did just have to mention there was one review where the last sentence was, the BBC must hang on to Moffat at all costs, and it was made in 2007. So I just found that really funny.
And they did. They sure did.
They did for sure.
Anything else we have to say before we go?
Just that I know I've been saying so many times that I'm so excited for next week's episode, but you guys, I am so excited for next week's episode. You guys, you do not understand. You do not understand. And you are going to have to come back next week to hear us talk all about Utopia.
This is one of the episodes that we have been so excited to get to ever since we started this podcast. So make sure you come back next week. But until then, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at TimeyWimeyPod.
And email us anything and everything to timeywimeypod@gmail.com.
And make sure to leave us a review wherever you're listening.
And we will talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Ta-ra.